So we're here today with one of my favorite tools in all of existence, and that's the auto scrubber. And the reason is it makes life around the building so much easier. And of course, when you're trying to sell the building, clean is everything. So there's a few things about this auto scrubber here that we're looking at today that I'm not crazy about, but we're going to go through them and we're going to fix it. And so by the time we're done, you're going to have a really nice looking auto scrubber. First thing is, you can't clean with dirty tools. It doesn't even make sense to me that anybody would even try to clean with a dirty tool. Look at the top of that cleaning tool. It's filthy. I couldn't emotionally clean with that tool. I couldn't even start to clean. So one thing that you have as a resource in every one of your buildings that you get every week that maybe you haven't thought about is when you get new auto scrubbing pads, that little circle in the middle is like the world's best little cleaning pad. And you get new ones all the time. So every time you get one of these, you get one of these. So when you go to change out your pad, you have this. This works really nice. You can put this in the sink, and the result is now we're going to clean with a clean tool. That same principle to me translates to the auto scrubber. So I'll just tell you that when I come to work an event, and if I happen to work an event with any of you, and you may think, wow, really? That's the first thing you're going to do? And the answer is yes. The very first thing I do as an event's getting ready to start, I want to make sure that this thing's ready to go. And in a little while, I'll show you why. Let's talk about this tool, the auto scrubber. This is intimidating, I understand. When you walk up to it for the first time, it might as well be a 747 that you're about to fly. You know, it's got all these parts, and oh my gosh, you've never seen anything like this before, and am I gonna break it? You know, geez, how am I ever gonna figure this out? Well, we're gonna simplify it because it really is a sum of the parts. So let's start with the things first that I don't like about this that makes it harder. Number one is this piece right here. So this piece right here is where you can see what's going on. So this side is vacuuming, so this creates suction, and then the dirty water is coming in here. Well, see how cloudy and unclear this is? You can't see what's happening. Whereas if we were to clean this up and this was nice and clear, as you're auto scrubbing, you'd be able to see the water coming in, and you should always have a nice stream of water coming into your dirty water tank. So we're gonna clean this up. These just tip out of here. So you've got this little flap, and you just grab a hold of this and it just pop right out of there, okay? So that's a screen. So now you can see I can get in there to clean. And then on the other side, this one pops out as well, okay? Now, in terms of parts that we stock, sometimes this little thing will break right here, and we stock that. So you can order this piece if this piece breaks, and I'll point out as we go which pieces that we keep in stock, okay? So we're gonna clean this up so that we can see through there. So I'm gonna use the same thing that we used to clean up the other, the other tool. The other thing that you can do with this is you can take one of your packets of cleaner and put it in a bucket, and then at night or maybe over the weekend, just drop this thing in the bucket with cleaner in it and just let it soak all weekend, and then it'll get some of that grime off of there. So now, okay, I'm gonna pop these back on, and the rest of this machine, I kind of treat the whole machine as if it's my car. And so there we go, okay? So look at that guy. I mean, so much better, okay? So now that we kind of got it to where I would like to walk up to it when I walked into a building and knew it was ready to go, now I kind of want to break it down into the parts so it's not so intimidating, okay? So you've got a couple hoses, which are pretty straightforward. And of course, those slide off of there, okay? One's a vacuum and the other one's the suction that goes down to the squeegee. And then you have this piece, okay? So that's pretty straightforward. And then this piece right here, for some reason, everybody's a little scared of it or is confused by it, but this is just the dirty water tank. And this actually just lifts off, okay? And sitting on the machine, of course, that's where you open that up and you drain the dirty water out. And then we got this tube. And this is the tube that goes down to the squeegee. And this is where the water gets sucked up and it comes into here. And that's how the dirty water gets into the tank, okay? So one of the things is this gets clogged with debris, lint, all sorts of things. This is the brush that goes on here. So this just twists off, okay? So you turn that counterclockwise and it just falls into your hand. So when you go to put it on, of course it goes on like that, and then you turn it clockwise and it's on there. There's nothing you really need to mess with or be aware of other than this tube right here that comes down here, okay? This can get clogged. And that's what, when you're looking through that little glass plastic thing that we cleaned up and you don't see a bunch of water coming through there, the possibility is that this gets clogged, and on some of your machines, this doesn't have this wire tie on here, and so this tube can actually come off of here. And so you just have to push that tube back on, okay? So you can see how that works. That tube, water comes up from the squeegee, comes up here, comes up this tube, out of the tube, and into your dirty water tank. Let's put the squeegee together. The squeegee has these three basic pieces. These wheels are critical, that they spin easily, okay? These wheels pop off, and we have replacements for them. So for whatever reason, if you lose a wheel, and sometimes you do, these just pop out of here. And so you've got this little axle here, and then you got the wheel. These need to be cleaned too. And like I say, they just snap on. Just push it back in there. Doesn't that feel better? It does to me. So to replace the squeegee, if the squeegee is clean and in good working order, what it does is it leaves the floor completely dry behind you, because that squeegee's making really nice contact with the floor, and as it goes, it just takes that water right up. If it's dirty or it's got stuff hanging off of it, it leaves streaks on your floor, and yeah, it just isn't as good of an experience, okay? If these blades start to get all worn out and they kind of start cracking, we stock these blades and we stock these wheels and axles. Haley has them in the warehouse, and these little knobs that I'll show you where these go, but generally these blades will last about 6 months or so on one edge, and then you can flip them over, use the other edge for another 6 months, and you're good to go. Okay, so you'll notice one has slots in it and one doesn't, okay? The one that doesn't have slots goes in the back of the squeegee. So this is gonna end up back here, because the one in the front, as you're cruising along, it has to let the water through the slots. And then I get this in position so that those don't want to fall off on me. Now, day in and day out, you don't take this all apart. You can just put this in the sink, you peel these back, and you just want to clean this out really good. So once again, that's nice and clean, and you don't have widows and orphans hanging off the back of this thing, streaking up the floor. There that is, and we're just gonna loosely put these on, and you'll see why I'm just putting those on loosely, because these two center ones are what you use to hook it onto the machine, okay? So let's go back underneath the machine. Okay. So we're gonna pull this out, and you see, remember I didn't put these on tight, and then there's these slots right here. So you grab this, and you just slide this on there, slide this into those slots like that, and then I make sure that that's really in there, and then you just tighten those down. And you can swing this out the other side if you want to tighten this other nut so that you don't have to reach under here. So see, this goes all the way through and over to the other side, okay? So now that's in there. That's nice and tight in there. So at this point, with the machine apart, let me just take a second, and it should be this way with everything in the building. You know, be mindful of the person coming after you and how you would like to receive things when you get to the building. So the auto scrubber, you know, the squeegee is off, it's all cleaned up. The pad's off, it's cleaned up and ready to go. The machine's been wiped down, the batteries are charged. And so you're walking into a situation where, like I say, somebody's been mindful of you and what you're starting off your shift with, okay? And it should be that way with everything in the building. If you use an extension cord, wind it up for the next person. Just don't wad it up and throw it in a bucket, because then the next person's grabbing it and it's all wound up and they're shaking it, and they've got a customer that's waiting on an extension cord, or they're trying to set up. So everything in the building, once again, we've tried to give you the best of everything, the best AV system, the best extension cords, good cleaning tools. Just like I say, watch out for one another. So having said that, there's only one thing left, and this is extremely important. I can walk into a building and in 10 seconds, looking at the main hall floor, I can tell you if this machine's working properly or not, and if you're not following the following instruction. And that is, you cannot mix this cleaning solution in the machine. So what you want to do when you do solution is, if you always mix it in here, then you'll never get over concentrated. So let's mix up some, and you just open up your packet, and then you dump your packet in here. And we're just gonna fill this guy up. And don't overfill it, just fill it to where it's an inch or so from the top. Just to give you a feel. Unless your building is really, really filthy, or you're doing a deep clean where maybe you're doing the auto scrubbing the floor twice, which I do from time to time, especially in the main hall. I'll do it one direction, then I'll do it the other direction. You can pretty much do the whole building on one tank, okay? So let's talk about a pad for a second. This pad, you can pretty much get one whole building out of one side of the pad. Then you flip it over and you get another whole building. So really, in a weekend, these are like $4.80. So they're not, it doesn't break the bank, okay? So if you've got a busy weekend, you got a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, after the weekend, this thing's gotta go. And you get a clean one. You should always have a couple on the shelf. So keep your inventory so that, like I say, you've always got a couple of these around. But what gets particularly bad is, see how that edge is nice and square? That, because when you put it on there, that edge is nice and square and you get a nice clean out of it. If you use these too many times, these start to compress, and now it's not even like touching the floor. So not only is it dirty, but it's not even hitting the floor except maybe right in here. So you're just kind of working against yourself. So don't, obviously don't waste them, but use the pad appropriately. Okay, so now we're going to the last thing we're going to do before we auto scrub, and we're going to kind of set it and forget it. And that's this little knob right down here, okay? This controls your water flow out of your tank. So there's a little tube that comes out of your tank where we put the water, comes out here, and then the water comes onto the pad. So this little valve, if it's sideways like that, that means it's 100% open. So that's 100% water flow. And so anything less than that is a little bit less, and then there is off, okay? So once again, just kind of like the pad, these little packets here that we use to make up the pad, I think these are about 79 cents, okay? So, you know, don't worry about using too much water. You'll get a better result, and you'll actually be able to walk a little bit faster. I think one of the things you might be surprised at as we go to auto scrubbing here is how fast I walk behind this machine. Okay, so now that we've got water in our machine, we've got all our hoses hooked up, and we've got our water set, we've got a clean squeegee, we got a nice clean pad on there, let's take it out to the main hall and take it for a spin. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about what you should be seeing as you go along, and kind of what you're looking for. And it's really just one thing. Remember how we shined this all up here, this glass, so that we could see the water coming through. So as we kind of walk along, and we're putting down water, and as you can see how that's coming out of there. Just it's picking up the water as we go. And that's kind of what is nice to be able to see. And if that's all dirty in there, you can't see that happening. And if that ceases to happen, you know you got a problem. So I'll tell you what we're going to do is we're going to simulate that not happening so we're basically we're going to goof up the machine here a little bit. So we're going to stop. I'm going to pull this up, and we're going to take the pad off. Okay, and now see, let me just demonstrate. See, there's a nice healthy amount of water that we're putting down on the floor, but we're cleaning up behind it. But the water on that pad, that's your lubricant. So that's what protects the floor too. It's a beautiful wood. If you don't have enough water, you don't have any lubricant, you aren't cleaning anything. So this is not a bad thing. People look at all that water and they go, oh my goodness. But you notice as we go, we're picking it all up. So this isn't a problem. So let's take the pad off. Remember this tube, this is our vacuum tube here, the black vacuum tube that goes up to our tank. And then here's the bottom part of the vacuum tube, this hard plastic thing. If you remember that, that's where the water goes up through the squeegee, comes through this hard vacuum tube that can get plugged. And we're going to show you how to clean that out. And then it comes up here. But remember I said sometimes, doesn't happen a lot, but this tube can fall off of there. So that's not like that. So let's just see how the machine acts so that you know what you're looking for if that isn't hooked up. You can probably guess we're going to have a lot of water that we put down. Okay, now we're going to go along and we're going to go through that puddle, okay, and no water coming out. Awfully wet behind me. No water, damp behind me, problem. We got a problem, okay? Now we know what it is because I showed you what it was. But if that was all dirty, not to beat a dead horse, but if that was dirty and I couldn't see, then I would say, oh gosh, I probably would have noticed no water coming out even before that happened. So now we're gonna put that tube back on. So I'm gonna pop that back on, make sure that's on there good and firm. Put this back on, and then you're gonna see it, we're gonna take off, and it's gonna be voila. So now, we're gonna squeeze that, and as we go, guess what's gonna happen? We're gonna see a bunch of water shooting into our return tank, and there it is. Okay, so I would go back over. Remember all that water? There's a big old puddle right there. And we cut through that, sucks that right up, gone. Now, in behind me, look at that, how dry that is back here, even though we're putting down all that water. Now you're gonna have, you'll notice as you go, these softer wood floors, some of you have harder wood floor, but the high heels and stuff, they leave little dimples. And obviously, you know, we're not gonna be able to suck all the water out of those little dimples. Don't worry about that. So if you look behind you and you see what looks like raindrops behind you, that's just a little bit of water that, like I say, might be laying in some high heel marks, okay? So, another thing I wanna show you is, let's say that you got something really dirty and sticky. So I want you to think about what would you do if you had a brush in your hand and you were scrubbing along just like this, but you came to something you really needed to get off, okay? What would you do? You would push down with your arm and you'd put a little more pressure on it, wouldn't you? And you'd scrub like this. Well, you can do the same thing with this just by flipping the handle forward, okay? So we're gonna just flip the handle forward. See, now I can push on this. So I can put this machine like this and I can grab it and I can push down on it a little bit and I can scrub up, you know, a bad spot and put a little pressure on it. And then I could just pick that back up, suck all that water back up. You can see all that water that I put down shooting out of the tube there. And look at that. Now I've produced the same effect as pushing with a scrub brush in my hand, okay? So, and if you had to do a lot of it, it's kind of like walking a dog. Let's say you had a lot of where you know it's just super sticky and you just wanted to clean up a little bit. You can just squeeze and walk with the machine beside you, and I'm just pushing down on it a little bit. So it's just like I'm walking beside the machine and I'm pushing down. And see, I've got a little pressure on it, and then I can just pop it right back up and keep on going, just like that. One of the first things I do when I'm getting ready for an event, if I'm gonna come work an event, I'm going to get this thing ready. And because as the caterer's setting up and as the party goes on, what if there's a big spill, okay? What if we have some, you know, somebody is a little tipsy and we just maybe wandered in off the street or whatever, so we have somebody that just like that we're gonna demonstrate what happens when we get a spill. So they come to you and they say, hey, we got a mess on the dance floor. So boom, somebody spills a drink and the caterer comes along and let's throw, she or he dumps a big old pitcher of water all over the floor and oh, we got a mess, okay? So we think, oh, let's just grab ourselves a mop. Yeah, let's just rearrange it is really what we're talking about there. So why do we have the auto scrubber ready? So you got this dance floor gone, the DJ's gone, you're gonna show up with the cool machine, right? And so now watch this. Some people think, oh, I should turn off the water because I'm picking up water. You don't need to. This isn't putting it down enough water that it isn't worth messing with the water, okay? So watch this. Now watch how, now you just had this big old spill. Look at the water gushing out of there. We're just gonna clean this right up here. So not only, what are we doing? We're not only cleaning up the water and getting all that mess off the floor, our machine is putting down clean solution. All done. So completely clean. I want to show you one last thing about auto scrubbing. It has to do with corners in that. If you just put your handle just a little bit forward, now look what happens. I come into the corner, my handle's not banging the wall. I get right in there, go back in there, either direction. Look at that. Okay, so now we're back into the, you know, the maintenance room here, where the mop sink is. And since we're done auto scrubbing, we're just gonna clean it out. So obviously the first thing we want to do is get rid of the dirty water. You can see in there, there's all of our dirty water. So I'm gonna set this aside for right now, and we're gonna rinse that out too. But this is where we're gonna drain the dirty water. So all of you have varying types of mop sinks. So the very new buildings, actually, you can just push the auto scrubber right into the mop sink and do this. And some of you have this type over here that have a low front so that you can put the hose in there. But you always have the option of just picking the tank up too and setting it in the sink. So, and oftentimes that's actually the easiest option. It's not terribly heavy. I mean, this is pretty full of water. So I'm just gonna set this right in the mop sink here. And then the drain hose is over here. So I'm just gonna flop the drain hose off to the side, and we're just gonna drain the water out of there. Once you get all the dirty water out of there, then you just want to take the hose, and rinse it out. Try and keep that, try and keep those lenses, as clear as we can. I always keep the battery in until the very end, and I'll tell you why. Is because the battery, when you tip the machine back, without the battery on there, it wants to tip forward. So the battery is a nice weight back there. So once again, I can't put that back together without, I don't want to put that back together all dirty like that. So now that we have everything taken apart, we've cleaned the tank and we've got everything ready to go, I want to show you how to clean out the vacuum tube and underneath the machine. So remember, this is the tube that hooks onto the dirty water tank, and then it comes down here, if you'll recall, and it hooks into this piece here that goes down and then hooks onto the squeegee. So once again, that water comes up and then gets sucked up through this part of the vacuum tube and then into the black piece that goes up to the dirty water tank. Well, this can pick up stuff and stuff gets stuck in there. So, and that'll restrict that the machine's ability, because it's clogged just like a vacuum, and it restricts the ability to pull that water up and leave your floor dry. So some of you are going to be able to do what we're going to do right in your mop sink, because you have a mop sink that you can put the machine in and rinse it out there. But if you don't have that, we're just going to take it outside, right outside the door, and flush this out. And you'll want to do it outside, or if you have the mop sink where you can pull it in, because it makes kind of a big mess. And I know some of you are in colder climates like Chicago and Madison and all of those places, so maybe just wait for a day where it's a little nicer outside. But it just takes a minute or two, so it's not like you're going to be freezing out there. So let's take it outside and I'll show you how to flush that out. Okay, so we've got the machine outside, as you can see, and then all of you have a bucket like this with a hose in it. So I'm going to grab a little piece of hose, and then you all have these little things that turn the water on. So one of these should be in the bucket, and so let's go ahead and hook the water up. So we'll hook this on, and of course the spigot doesn't have a knob on it. This becomes your knob. So it's got a little square thing in there. So there's 4 different sizes here, but just find the one that kind of slips on there. And then we're gonna turn this water on. What we're gonna do is we're just actually gonna shove this hose down in this tube, and it's gonna come down through this tube. See, and see all the junk that I just blasted out of there that got collected, and you can see it's just pouring out where the water normally comes up. And now we'll just disconnect our hose and we'll go back inside. So there you go. That's the auto scrubber by Bill. So I think if you watch this, you may have to watch it a couple times. Of course, I've been doing it a long time and you're just learning, but when this works right, you know all those little tricks and everything I showed you, and you watch out for the next guy, when you come in to work, it'll be ready for you and it'll all go well for you. Thanks.